Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we're going to recap who's number one, the Night of Champions, and Polaris 25, the Absolute GP. Also, going to talk a little about trials. ADCC North American Trials is happening in 2 weeks. We're all going to be there, so talk a little bit about that at the end of the show. As always, in the show, I'm your host, Maine. It's our co-host,
Miranda.
Hey, doing Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. It was a fun weekend of events.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happened on Sundays, so recaps are pretty fresh in our mind. But overall, fantastic weekend of events. Not a ton to preview this week, and honestly, not a ton of news other than online. Now we can see all the trials registrants.
You could before, and then they disappeared for a minute, and then you could again.
But now we can for U.S. trials.
Because I remember checking it out before, and that's when I noticed certain people were there and certain people weren't there.
Yeah.
And then I looked again, and I was like, oh, that's fun.
It's also been really neat to see, just with the new weigh-in procedures, because now you can weigh in the day before, the night before trials, to see, because there was a big discussion of, we know how much weight people cut for trials, and it was like, I think a couple of people will move, but probably 95% of people, or 98% of people won't move.
Surprisingly, Dante Leone is not registered, and he said that his next tournament is trials.
Didn't he medal?
He said he's doing trials.
Well, he doesn't have to do trials because he's a medalist.
What weight will he do it at?
That's a good question. So, okay, that's a news piece. So, also this weekend, IBJJF No-Gi Pans happened. It happened in Houston, Texas, and it was phenomenal there. You know, I think Wardzinski won his division, Junior Costa won his division, Grippo won his fifth, I think, No-Gi Pans title. You have all the. Why don't you read them off? We'll do that news. We're not going to get a chance to cover No-Gi Pans. Yeah. We might touch on it next week, depending on what's going on pre-trials. Okay. But we have big super fights paid tournaments, and I like to kind of prioritize the paid tournaments that are paying out athletes over other stuff when we have it. So
Pans for men. We'll start at Rooster. John Stapleton won Rooster.
I saw that.
I was like, wow.
He's the guy we've known in the local scene for a long time. He's been a black belt for a couple years now.
He's always been quite tiny, and he's been the type that would take on anybody, so he's always been fun
He's
to
the
watch.
type of guy, and I know him because he will frequently register in tournaments twice.
Yeah.
And he'll do two super fights on the same card if they'll let him. He was a guy that was just always looking for matches and looking to be out there and looking like he would, again, I think on some of the early finishers, he would have two matches on the card that were separated because hey man, there's another guy, I'll take him on too. But if you need a match for him, I'll take him too. And it was always I always really appreciated how.
And he had the mohawk for a while.
Yeah. I always appreciated the pace he pushed and how voracious he was in up and coming through the belts. He got black belt, I think, a couple of years ago, so it's really cool to see him, a pretty local guy, winning, No-Gi Pans title.
So he was Rooster, and then we go light feather was Junie.
Yep.
And then we had feather was Gianni.
Yep. Again, there's one tournament that Grippo consistently wins. It is No-Gi Pans.
Yeah, that is true. And then light, we had a Carlos Henrique.
Yep.
Not to be confused with any other Henriques that exist that are much larger.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go middle. Middleweight was Oliver Taza.
Yep, Taza takes that. I forget who he had. I watched a little bit of one of his matches. I'm catching mostly Instagram highlights of people's matches.
I'm trying to think who I watched him go against.
I was really happy this week actually for the highlights that Flo and IBJJF were posting. I was actually really. I think they were some of the better highlights that they have posted for that coverage of those events.
I took a picture of all the finals matches so I can look and see who he went against. But in the meantime, middle heavy was Francisco Lowe.
Yep.
Who his matches were freaking wild, all of them.
Yeah, he hits. There's a highlight going around of him hitting. We talked about it in the Grappling Rewind chat as well as you and I talked about it on the pre-show.
Kiernan Kurchik. That's who.
Kiernan.
That's who Oliver Taza went against. Anyway. But yeah.
And Kieran's a B team now, I think.
Yeah,
he's been looking really good. We saw him. I talked to him this last week about some of the matches at Enigma.
Yeah, it still says TLI, but whatever. He was always the Canadian TLI guy.
Mm-hmm.
But Francisco Lowe, some wild shit.
He hit what people are calling a Z-lock. What I know is just a leg Kimura.
Yeah.
It's just I forget what match it was in his one of his runs, because I think he did Absolute and he did his division. I think it was a divisional match, but from the guard.
I think it was a divisional match,
If
too.
you have someone on their knees and you scoop under their shin, but you scoop, instead of scooping between their legs, you scoop on the outside. And if you can lift your arm and lift their shin away from them and twist their leg out, you can essentially, as they're forced to stand on the other leg, you can lock your hips on top of their opposite hip and lever against their knee. And it's just a knee exploder.
Yeah.
It's a leg. It looks exactly like a Kimura or Americana with the arm, but you're doing it with this underhook grip on your leg, and it's really neat. It's uncommon. But it's one of those things that if you get caught there and somebody who hooks your leg, and they have the pressure and able to keep your hips from getting away and turning.
Who that is? I don't know who that is.
I don't recognize the guy who's doing it too. But
anyway, somebody in his vision, he did that too.
If you can't lift up and actually limp your leg over because they're locked on their outside hip, you can't escape it. And basically, you have to do a flip basically. And Francisco Lowe prevents that. So really neat sub. We don't see a whole lot of. Cool to see him hit it at pans. Cool to see him being able to do sort of twisting leg locks now in the IBJJF.
And he beat Jake Couch and Felipe Silva. So
yeah, he submitted Couch, didn't he?
Yeah, it wasn't like he had an easy division.
Did he get Couch with a choke or a leg lock?
I don't remember.
I saw the highlight of him.
I don't remember.
Versus
I watched
Couch.
finals, but I didn't watch.
That was not.
I watched
some
of the stuff leading up to finals, but I had some friends that were purple belts, and purple belts were going at the same time, so I was watching my friends instead. Middle heavy. What do we go to after middle heavy?
Wardzinski.
Heavy was won by Wardzinski.
Yep.
He went against Elder Cruz in finals.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't see the match yet, but I saw the podium. I was like, I got to watch that match
and
now.
I watched the Adam Wardzinski Hunter Colvin match. That was fun.
Yeah.
And then we go super heavy, which was Dante Leone.
Yeah.
Debuting at super heavyweight.
And then Leone made a post that was, I gave up 40 to 50 pounds on everyone. And I'm like, Dante, why you be doing that? Why? Like, you can just register at your weight class.
I just thought his afro weighed 40 pounds.
Dude.
He has quite the afro.
Something else on him weighs 40 pounds. Man, to gump. There are plenty. He said, I entered the most stacked division of the tournament to prove I could, or something like that. And I went, good for you, Dante.
He went against Bones at the end. Yeah. It was wild.
He beat Devontae Johnson. And, I think beat him on points.
He did. He beat him on points.
Which is Devontae
I was listening to Murillo the whole time. I was like, Murillo's voice. And then watching Dante's hair. It was a thing.
Dude, I am, again, just wildly impressed with Dante. From, the couple of highlights I saw in that last Bones match, to go up in a tournament like this, it's a multi-match tournament like that in one of the stronger divisions that were what Dante said, one of the stronger divisions.
I also, the thing that he did do was he wrestled up. He pulled guard every single time.
Yeah.
And he would wrestle up rather than trying to do wrestling exchanges.
Which is what we saw a lot of.
Which is probably smart because it's less energy. I mean, it's a lot of energy, but it's less energy than standing the whole time.
If you're also the quicker guy, and Leone is good, he's got good wrestling. If you can jump in on the bigger guy's legs to get them down, they'll fold over you. We know Dante has really good wrestle ups. He's leveraging that against the bigger guys. It's interesting. I don't know why he is in the weight class that he was in, but man, if he can go and win it,
I think he said he just wanted to. He was just he just felt and that's why I wonder what he is going to then do for trials. He is the plus 99.
He may go to hilarious. 88. I don't remember if he's moving divisions or not.
Yeah,
but
he's not registered yet. His name doesn't come up.
I don't think he's going to do trials.
He said he was doing trials.
He said a lot of things, but he doesn't. He's going to get an invite.
He also said he was going to do super heavy, and all of us thought he was bullshitting, and then he fucking won.
And then he did. And then he won. Not only did he do it, then he won it.
Okay. And then after that, we have Roosevelt Souza winning ultra heavy.
Yeah.
And then we had Pedro Henrique winning absolute.
Mm-hmm.
And then ladies, we had Adele Fortinero. Is it Fortinero?
I can never get her last name.
Yeah,
but Fortinero is
won,
what we kind of butcher.
She won feather. Elizabeth Mitrovic won Mitrovic.
Yeah, Liz Mitrovic.
Middle heavy, and then the rest were not your normal names for the women's divisions. So
nice.
We can go from there. But yeah, Pants was fun. All the matches are there.
Yeah, we'll get a chance probably this week to digest them more, and next week, if we have a chance, we'll kind of lead into more of them because I haven't got a chance. I literally, full disclosure, had a chance to watch some of the Instagram highlights, but concentrated our time on Polaris and Who's Number One because again,
I have no life, so I watched them. I watched my friends at Purple, and then I watched all the finals.
That's why you're great on the podcast,
You know,
because
and
like
then-
you watch more than I
and
do.
then I
when
watched
there's
all
nobody else
of-
that does.
And then I watched all of freaking
Polaris and Who's Number One.
Who's Number One? I watched Polaris Saturday night because I still have no life.
I watched it. I watched it Saturday morning. I actually watched it when it was live.
You watched it live.
It was great.
I watched it after reffing, 30-something matches.
Nice.
Yep,
So,
good times. Good times.
what do you want to move on? Do you want to go into Polaris? Do you want to go into One FC? Do you want to go into Who's Number One?
Let's do One FC because it's one match and
Yep.
we can cross it off. Our
Danielle
list.
Kelly takes the atomweight title for One FC, which is it's atomweight, so it's 115.
Yeah.
So it's 115. She went against Jessa Kahn, and you and I watched this match right before the pre-show again. And the biggest takeaway that we both had was that Danielle Kelly knew how to use the cage, and it seemed like Kahn, and even in Kahn's interviews, talked about like she had not done a lot of cage work leading up into this match, and it seems like Danielle Kelly went, cool, then that is where I'm going to put this match 100% of the time. Kahn had some great moments. She almost gets Danielle Kelly's back. She sort of starts to get a rear naked choke, gets a squeeze, but Kelly does a really good job of like getting out just enough where Kahn can never get...
And then pushing Kahn against the walls or against the cage so she can't really turn and she can get back up.
It's a really classic MMA defense that like you and I have both done wall work over the years. Not as much nowadays, but we've done
I haven't done it in a while. I always joke around about taking a super fight in the cage, but I need the time to actually, because I'm not doing a cage match without.
They're fun.
Work.
I like.
Well, I want the cage work first because I want to remember what I should do.
It's a whole different thing.
Because you can throw people off the cage, which is hilarious.
But it was interesting here because we saw Danielle Kelly for her back escape when Jessa Kahn was on her back.
Yeah.
She kind of rolls her off the cage and uses the cage as a scrape, which is a very, very common technique in MMA.
Yeah.
But if you don't do a lot of cage work, it's very foreign because something gets in the way.
The one thing we saw that we probably have never seen in MMA before is Jessa Kahn jump onto jump guard.
I mean, we saw Vinny Magalhaes do it in PFL.
And then hold him against the cage like that?
We've seen it.
We've seen it?
Uh-huh. You've seen guys get powerbombed from the cage. It happens.
I guess from the back, normally you see it. You see people on people's backs and then held into the cage. But have you ever seen anybody jump guard?
Yes.
See, okay, maybe
I saw the UFC a couple years ago.
Maybe I'm not watching the right matches.
I think we both watch a little less MMA than we used to.
Yeah, I used to watch.
Because now we watch this.
And
jiu-jitsu.
I also, when I watch MMA, I am picky and choosy on what I watch.
I like that slap. I'll watch anything. So I just thought it was really. I was very, very impressed with Danielle Kelly's ability to use the cage throughout this match, and then Kahn doesn't get a catch. So in One FC, they score the entire match, and they scored on who has the most and best catches or like close submissions. They didn't give Kahn a catch for the back take with the combination of sort of the face rear naked choke attempt, and they gave Danielle Kelly an attempt on the toe hold, which I think it was valid. It wasn't a super strong toe hold, but she started working towards that finish, and she was able to control the vast majority of the match, other than that one brief stint where she got her shoulders and was able to get out of the back take that Jessa Kahn was working. I thought it was a very close match, but I do think it's I think it's the correct decision giving it to Kelly again with the dominance and kind of control that she had throughout the match.
I think so too.
But very happy to see One FC showcasing women's strawweights or women's atomweights for if they're going to talk about it as the One FC weight classes. And I'm super curious who we're going to see Danielle Kelly take on next. I did a seminar with her out in Colorado when she was there for One FC in Colorado and learned a bunch of stuff from her. My wife and I both actually took some really cool pieces and parts away from the seminar that she taught up at Troy Everett's gym, Night Pigeon, Novamente. And it was a great seminar, and so cool to see her take that title now. I'm curious who she's going to defend it against. Anything else on One FC?
Nope, that's it.
Let's see. What do you want to do? Polaris or Who's Number One?
Polaris.
Let's start with Polaris. It was on Saturday. This was a hell of a GP. I'm going to start off the recap of Polaris with one thing. Fabricio Andre, man, he is one of my favorite dudes after this weekend.
Yeah, he's not only ballsy, he has to be strong as fuck.
Dude, he's okay. So
like,
you said he weighed in at 77 kilos.
77 kilos.
170, 169
Everybody
pounds.
else is in the late 80s, early 90 kilos.
I think the second smallest guy. I mean, you probably had.
Okay, here. No, I'll tell you because I have all the.
Oh, you have the weights?
I have the weights.
I didn't write down the weights.
I wrote them down because I was curious. So, We have Fabricio was 77. Owen was 93.
These are our kilos, by the way.
Yeah. Isaac was 87. Jimenez was 88. Marcin was 99. Giancarlo was 95. Kahn was 99. And Jason Rao was 97. So the second smallest is Isaac Michel. And he's not a small man.
How big was Michelle again?
87. So
yeah.
he was 10.
10 kilos.
Yeah, there were
11
10
pounds
kilos.
was your closest guy. And Isaac is smaller than the other field by 10 kilos. So you're 22 pounds. You're 22 kilos smaller than Duarte, who, spoiler, he faces in the finals.
Yeah.
Dude, Fabricio, like, we know he's ballsy. We saw him do Absolute at ADCC. His first match was Victor Hugo.
He
Victor
also
Hugo
has to be strong as fuck.
Dude.
Like, there has to be some strength. Like, to be able to do some of the things he did, I know there's a lot of, like, if you get in the right place, you can kind of get
like good technique,
good
but
leverage
there's also,
but there's also, you got to have some strength to you to be able to do some of that shit.
He tries and succeeds at Uchimata, that's a weird word to put a preposition on. Owen Livesey.
Yeah.
Giancarlo Bodoni. And Kahn Duarte.
Yes. And
I'm sorry.
The Kahn one, if you don't see the picture of it, it's wild because he has him fully.
He has him up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how he scores on Bodoni. So even though he doesn't win, he is the guy walking away from this that everyone is astonished at his performance.
He also has a crazy ability to bounce. Like,
let's talk about the Owen match.
Yeah,
that's where
the
it
only
comes
other
up
person
the
I know
most.
that can do that is Greg Fisher. If you've ever rolled with Greg Fisher,
local MMA fighter,
guy, when you
been the 125 champion at Shogun for a long time.
Yeah, when you grab him and he hits the mat, his hips just bounce off the mat and he comes back at you. He's the only person I've ever met that's like that. It's freaking wild.
Mm-hmm. And again,
horrible.
Fabricio here is 30 pounds bigger than Fisher.
Oh yeah,
and it's. I am astonished what Fabricio Andre can do. When we saw him in the Open for the GP, I went, I love him. I just don't think he's going to move past because like the size would be too big of a factor because he's a guy that cuts to 66 kilos for his trials and for like the divisions that he does. A lot of times guys can go up, like they'll go up 10 kilos or something like that and they'll be bigger. But Fabricio looked like he is also 15 pounds, 20 pounds stronger. He
also didn't do the full power up that he did at that one tournament where I swore he like pulled his leg by doing it.
Yeah, he does the charge up.
But he doesn't do it as high as he once did.
Look, he's 170 now. You got to make compromises. So let's talk about him. He in the first round he takes on. I think by the way, this is exactly how I would have bracketed this tournament. Polaris staff did a great job in determining like.
Well, they also said certain people asked for certain people. That's why certain.
This is how it should have been bracketed.
Yeah.
This is how I wanted to see it. I love when a bracket ends up like, yep, that makes sense for everything. Fabricio takes on Owen Livesey in the first round. And the commentary and like both you and I were watching it, Owen has great, we've talked about him for a couple of years now at this point. Great wrestling, great judo, but is used to facing bigger guys. Yeah. And I think what threw him off the most here was whenever he would start to get going or start to throw or foot sweep Fabricio would potentially go down, potentially get taken over.
But we saw it also in his last match where he...
Chris Weidman.
No. Nicky Rod.
The Nicky Rod match.
That he foot swept
on
but then
Quintet.
he doesn't land it, which is the one thing they always like... In jiu-jitsu, what I was always told was when you do your takedowns, you land your takedowns.
You have to follow.
Because if not, then your brain doesn't do that when you compete.
Right.
And so I feel like he just doesn't follow his takedowns.
Yeah, it was...
And I don't know why. I don't know if it's a thing where you don't follow him because if it doesn't work, then you're on the bottom and you're fucked.
I don't know. It could be a holdover from judo.
Yeah.
Because he was zip-hunting, he's taking guys down, like he's scoring those, and there's not a need as much to follow the guys. And so it's a thing that we've seen from Owen kind of, at this point, somewhat consistently, where he can get a lot of guys down, like really, really top level, world level guys down, but he tends to not follow and cover. Yeah. And that's what I think there were 2 or 3 different scoring exchanges here that potentially would have scored for him had he been able to keep Fabricio down. But to Fabricio's credit, like we talked about a minute ago, he's immediately popping up. He's immediately getting his hips up.
And he's also getting counters. Like he goes to Uchi and it's like he Haragoshis off in Uchi and does all kinds of other crazy wild shit.
Yeah, it's crazy that Fabricio was willing to like Uchimata counter Owen Livesey, who we know is a 2013 Commonwealth Judo champion, like been a long-standing Judo champion. It's wild to have that. I've seen videos on Instagram and other training videos of Fabricio like in the gym doing actual judo, like real, like not like jiu-jitsu judo, but actual, like, oh, that is a technique that you are doing that is a judo technique. Like you're stepping, when you look
after
at judo,
the match,
they step the feet.
after the matches, he was like, "Hey, Owen, we need to do judo sometime." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I don't know."
Watch the hell out of that. Or if they train together, like,
do you need Fabricio to be even stronger?
Yes. Look, make the 145ers like make him king. I want to see a 145-pound guy once win an absolute at like a big level because he showed me that he could do it.
Win it back in the day?
He won. Bruno Malfacine did, and Kai did, but neither of them won a major, I don't think they ever won a. I could be wrong here, and if I am, someone correct me if you would.
I want to say he did. I want to say Kai did.
He won opens, but he didn't. I don't think he won like a world level major.
Okay, let me look at that.
You're gonna get sidetracked.
I will, but I will stay.
I'll finish on the match.
Just keep on talking to me.
I was really, really impressed with Fabricio's just ability to continually be far enough out of range that Owen could never cover him. So in Polaris, everything scores 1 point, which I think for the type of matches that they have, I think it's perfectly fine. It is also, I think, from an audience perspective, easier because everything is worth 1 point. Like, you take the guy down, you sit him down for 3 seconds, it's a point. You get around his legs, it's a point. You mount him, it's a point. You take his back, it's a point. I think it when you have, like, low-scoring matches, where I think every one of these matches, the only match that was...
Okay, so you were slightly off. He once took first place at... IBJJF American Nationals. That maybe.
What year?
2011.
Yeah, so 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When American Nationals was not what it was.
2013 European No-Gi Open. 2011.
European Open?
Yeah.
The European Championships? The Open?
No-Gi Open.
No-Gi. Okay.
It says No-Gi Open.
10 years ago.
2010, 2011, and 2012 Las Vegas.
Opens.
Open.
Yeah.
British Nationals 2015.
Okay.
British Nationals No-Gi 2015.
Okay.
So
8 years ago.
No super. Well, he hasn't been competing in a while.
And he's been retired for. He's been retired for
broken.
Probably what, 6 years?
He just had hip surgery when I saw him. So, I mean,
yeah. So I was wrong. It happens.
Yeah.
But I'm happy you called me out on it. That was good information.
I thought so. I thought he had done a lot.
I was wrong. I assume that little guys can't win opens because they don't typically do, but he proves me wrong.
He's an interesting little dude. Mm-hmm. He is. He's still bigger than me though.
I was just impressed with Fabricio's ability to continue to get out. Owen was unable to score. Fabricio is able to counter Uchimata and score on Owen Livesey, and that's how he scores his 1 point. In Polaris, it's just single points. You have mostly low-scoring matches because these guys are top level, and you're going to have low-scoring matches with top-level guys.
I like the fact they're all 1 point, too, because I feel like it creates more action.
It also doesn't matter. Like, it's 2 points versus 3 points. It's like versus Polaris, it's all 1 point.
Yeah.
You're not going to have ever more than, I think, the highest scoring match here is 3 points. And I don't think Michelle even scored there. 3 points.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's your highest scoring match of the tournament. You don't need to have multiple different point values when you're scoring 3 points total. Yeah. I think it makes it easier to watch. For Polaris, it works really, really well, and I love that they have made that switch for these kind of super fight GPs. I don't think it always works, but I think Polaris, it works very well. So, Fabricio moves on. That was the first match of the 170-pound tournament.
I like
open weight tournament.
I like your misspellings because I can still read it and understand what it means.
Yeah, I'm a phonetic misspeller.
Yeah, but it works because I can read it. I'm like Sith. Oh, I know what that means.
Mm-hmm. Because I look. What I'm doing is I can't type. This is behind the scenes. I use like 4 or 5 different computers on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That all
you also use a weird keyboard.
That also, I have my work computer, my work laptop. I have a computer upstairs with a different keyboard. I have the main computer, and I have a laptop down here that we do the podcast for. All have different keyboards.
Way too many.
And so I've not learned all of the keyboards right. And so I look at the screen and I'm taking notes, and I just type.
Yeah.
And I can get close enough, and so that's what my notes look like they do. Isaac Michel versus Roberto Jimenez. This is a match I was really, really excited for. Isaac beats him in wrestling.
Yeah.
Like that's the.
It is.
I was we've seen Roberto come out and be able to wrestle really aggressively, but Isaac, I think it wasn't even a size thing. It was just Isaac was more tenacious, which is wild to see versus Jimenez. Because Jimenez, that's one of the characteristics when he does very well is that he is just tenacious. He is on you consistently, and he is sort of like an unstoppable, an unrelenting force, much like Andrew Tackett this weekend.
He had a little bit of that, but he didn't have the normal crazy.
It seemed, he
seemed a little less crazy than normal.
He didn't look like Brazilian Trials.
Yeah, Brazilian
he's
Trials,
like rubbing his hands into the
he looks
mat.
like and he's like it's
ready
so weird.
to go.
It's a craziness.
It's great. It's an intensity that we love to see, because that when he looks like that, man, he brings an intensity
shit's
to that
about
match.
to get real. Yeah.
But in the Isaac match, it seems like Isaac takes kind of the initiative early in the match, and then he hits a pretty early duck under, and then drags him down to the mat, and then settles him, and then spends a minute or two sort of like inside control, just pressuring him. And then there's a second score for Michelle, which is just Isaac hitting a trip and then sort of running Roberto over with a front headlock and then getting him down. And that's both the scores. Yeah. It was majority of the match was on the feet or Michelle on top. And then Roberto pulls at one point and is trying to get to the legs, but Michelle is... Which, I mean, a very good leg locker.
Is also good that that's a new Roberto thing. Yeah. Because he was never like that before.
Well, we've seen him sub like I'm gonna say lesser guys with but not the guys of the caliber of Michelle. Like it's always been a big weak point in Roberto's game, and it seems like if he's willing to enter into the legs on a guy like Isaac Michelle, who is one of the top leg lockers in the sport, he's on that echelon.
So when he was talking and doing like his little Q&A at
you did a seminar with him
Unity,
like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, at Unity, he did. Somebody did ask him like, "Hey, if I go against a leg locker and I don't know anything about legs, what do I do?" And he was like, "You learn legs." So yeah, he seems to be about the legs now.
That's good. I mean, to see.
But he also said a couple other things like, "You just go out. You don't tap to choke."
He said some MMA stuff, which I love to hear.
You just go out.
You don't tap to choke. You just go out.
Yeah, you just go out.
Roberto,
he's
you're
like,
correct.
It'll only be a few seconds. You'll be fine.
I love it. He's a world-class competitor.
Yeah.
Again, I was just so impressed with Isaac Michelle's wrestling here, because Jimenez is a guy that is historically really hard to get a hold of, and for him to be able to 2 separate times be able to get him down and score on him just was extremely impressive to me. Isaac is at Brazilian Fight Factory. He's at some other place. They had a slash.
It's Vanguard, which is Jason Rao.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're good. They're very good.
So I love to see the new fold of Jimenez's game, willing to go into legs with Michelle, and like Michelle was also going after his legs a little bit too. Like looked to be maintaining position so that he wouldn't get scored on, but like he was able to stop Michelle's leg lock offense, which was again something we have always been a little concerned about Jimenez, because he has been kind of repeatedly heel hooked by guys of the caliber of Michelle. So to have him be able to not get heel hooked and be willing to enter the legs himself is a great improvement, and I'm just curious to see how he continues to develop that part of his game. Michelle moves on 2-0.
Yep.
Next match, we had Giancarlo Bodoni. You said his name a little bit differently than I did because you pronounced it correctly.
Marcin Makalewicz. It's Polish.
It's Polish, and I couldn't.
Marcin.
Yeah, Marcin.
He is our Polaris Trials champion.
Mm-hmm. Which again, I love. We talked about it a while ago. Like, I love when events hold trials because guys that have come into our radar from winning trials.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is Keith Kokorian won the early 10th Planet qualifier for EBI. Pedro Mourinho won one of the early Kasai qualifiers. Junior Casio won one of the Kasai qualifiers. Like, people that can win these qualifiers as like color belts and like up and comers go on to typically be pretty astonishing. Look at the Iron Brown Belt series that Copa Podia did years ago. Like, you get Mergali, you get Herber Santos, you get Duarte in that. Like, those guys that are winning those tournaments against either black belts or at the color belts are the guys that we're going to see on the level. So I love that Polaris is putting in their trials winner into this event, giving the opportunity to go against a guy like Giancarlo Bodoni, the current, under 88 kilo champion of ADCC.
Is he 88? Yeah, he is, because he went against Ferrante.
Because it's 88. It's
he went against Ferrante. That's how I figured that out.
Yeah.
Ferrante was 88 because you coached.
Yep. Yeah, I had to coach against Gordon. That was a fun day of trials.
But he weighed in at 95.
Yeah.
Kilos.
Again, I think he's still probably going to make the cut to 88. Like,
Yeah.
Bodoni's been looking a little bigger, but he's the champion. He doesn't have to do any trials. He's going to go into the World Championships.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go in comfortably at 88 again. And so this was
he can weigh in the day before, so it doesn't matter.
not for World Championships, just for trials.
Just for trials. Oh, okay.
Bodoni hits a really nice duck under back take. Marcin sits and tries to like flatten to stop it, but Bodoni's sort of a step ahead of him. He gets to the back. He gets eventually in a top passing position, like really similar to what we see from Gordon. We're going to talk about Gordon a little later in his match. But that new wave, a lot of those guys pass the exact same way. Bodoni is in that low sort of not stack passing, low hips up passing and kind of leaning over top of Marcin. And then Marcin goes to turtle, and then Bodoni takes the back and then gets the body triangle and gets a rear naked choke finish.
Yep.
I loved that the camera has both of their faces, and Marcin gets his back taken in like in a pretty neat sequence, and kind of goes, and commentary goes, yeah, I thought that was good too.
Yeah.
It was a nice little moment of you're watching a guy up and coming versus one of the best in the world, like get that feel. Okay, this is the top level. That was a really cool sequence. I'm gonna learn from this sequence, and like I'm not gonna probably win the match because he's on my back now and he's one of the best in the world, but you saw him go, that was a cool sequence, and I'm going to learn from that sequence. So Bodoni moves on. I want to see more from Marcin. I love events that have qualifiers, and I love that he is in this, even if he doesn't move on.
Yep.
Last match in the first round of the GP, we had Kahn Duarte versus Jason Rao.
Allegedly, Jason Rao asked for him.
I would ask for Kahn too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, how often do you get a shot?
It's the big dog, right?
Yeah, how often do you get a shot at the under 99 kilogram champion who sometimes even possibly has issues with leg locks from now and again, and
Jason
you
Rao
are
is a beast.
Phenomenal leg locker.
Yeah.
Like Jason Rao is the guy that everyone talks about. He's your favorite grappler's favorite grappler.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, you like a grappler? They probably like Jason Rao.
Yeah.
Jason Rao's probably their favorite grappler. So it's
I did
awesome
a seminar
to see
with him at Vault.
Did you?
Yeah. A couple months ago.
I've actually
Passing.
I've never taken a seminar with Rao.
He's a lot bigger than I expected him to be.
He's a big dude.
He really explains everything very well.
Yeah. Everyone points to him being a really great coach. Yeah. But again, I think this is a really good matchup for Rao.
I ref a bunch of his people, like his white and blue belts, for HCS all the time. And they're good. I mean, they're all very, very solid.
Yeah. Rao's a guy that people will come to frequently and like pass through Rao's gym to like, because he will tighten up things in your game, even at the world stage. So it's cool to see him go against Kahn. I think stylistically, that's a matchup that if Rao is going to punch up to a guy like Kahn, Kahn is the guy to do it, because Kahn historically has had kind of some issues with the leg locks. If Kahn is ever going to take a big loss or an upset loss, it is usually by leg lock. Unfortunately, Kahn immediately shoots, and this kind of is the flavor of the whole tournament for Kahn.
Well, I guess it's an early one. If they're gonna pull anyway, that if you shoot it fast enough, you're gonna take them down.
It takes them instantaneously. Yeah. But it was such an interesting thing. Like Kahn's not a slow starter, but he is not a quick starter usually.
Yeah, we haven't seen him do this.
Almost all his matches, he does something, either a wrestle up or a shot, and scores 1 point immediately. Yeah. It was just a really interesting kind of strategy that we haven't seen Kahn implement before in these sort of matches. He takes Rao down.
Somebody made the comment that an IBJJF thing is the first to score normally wins the match.
Yeah. And that's been long-standing. We've talked about that on the show for years and years and years. Somebody did an analysis years ago, and it came out that was like, they win, I think it's 70 or in some cases 90, depending on the tournament,
it's a ridiculous
90% of the time.
Yeah.
Like, you want to score first because you get in the driver's seat. I actually talked to Orlando Sanchez, rest in peace, and he was talking about in the Nicky, when I was doing media for ADCC 2019, that Nicky Rod got in front of him pace-wise, and he could never take the initiative back. And like, that has always stuck with me a ton. I think it's also an interview that Flo did as well. And that's like, that goes back to that, I have to be first, I have to score first. Duarte scored first every match here.
Yeah.
And then just, again, gets in that same passing position. I thought it was interesting how Kahn decided to pass Rao, because Rao is so good underneath and getting into the legs and getting like getting you to overcommit so that he can get into your legs to get to the heel hooks and the knee bars.
Yeah.
Kind of much like Oliver Taza does. Like those guys have very similar. They look for a different collection of techniques.
Yeah.
But how they like to get there is very similar, where they're going to get you to overcommit over top of them, and they're going to lever and roll you over. Kynan never lets Rao get underneath him. And he's super diligent in like framing him out with either his knees or his hands and keeping his body low to prevent Rao from ever being able to like get under him while still putting good pressure into the top of Rao's knees so that he kind of keeps him in position. Eventually he's able to pass. He goes to mount. I thought he was going to go smother here for a second because that's sort of coming into favor. But he slides off for the head and arm. He lets Rao put his arm over, and then he's able to get the head and arm from mount.
Yep.
And that was it. Any other kind of pieces on the match?
Nope.
I'm just really impressed with, I mean, it's kind of Duarte. You always impressed with him, but just the change of pace and the willingness to like be so, not present in his guard, just to fight so diligently in that range.
Well,
and
he's
then
also,
pressure and labor
he's
that
also
out.
not, I won't say that he's stally, but he wasn't stally at all. Like, he kept moving. Where I feel like sometimes in his other matches, he'll get a little stally.
Craig Jones, ADCC 2022.
Well, yeah, that
match.
That match. But
that match a lot where he almost lost the world title on stalling calls.
Stalling, yeah. Like, he gets stally, and this was, there was no stally about him this time.
No. I think he's also, like, he tactically knows that if you give Rao enough time, Rao can throw hard stuff at you. So I want to kind of dominate and put positions down on Rao because he's not a guy he's a guy that can flash sub and kind of is vulnerable to flash leg lock subs. So Rao is definitely the guy that I want to avoid that the most, probably of this whole tournament. He's like, that's the guy I want to avoid doing that, so I'm going to really make sure I control him the entire time very diligently, and then
Speaking of that, one of the finals matches, and I forget which one.
Pans?
There was a girl who was in another girl's guard, and it was at the very end, and so she just, like, basically balled up and didn't do anything, and the girl on bottom was literally, like, unlocked her guard and was, like, flailing her arms.
Yeah,
I saw
that.
And she was like, and, I mean, they put two
penalties
on the other girl, but the other girl still won because she's still ahead in points.
We saw him
do
that.
But it was hilarious. I was like, she just went all out, like, I'm going to wiggle, you know?
Yeah, you're going to show that your guard's open and willing to pass. We saw him Musumeci do that a couple years ago.
Did she?
In the world. She was in the guard and she body triangled in the guard to hold the guard.
Because, yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like, I'm stalling up on points, like.
Well, the thing is, your first, if you don't have a lot of time, your first one doesn't mean anything. Your second one's only an advantage. So you can eat 2 penalties.
Yeah, and you can eat at least 30 seconds, if not more, for the way IBJJF does it. But yeah, you play to the tactics of your rules.
Yeah. But anyway, that was funny. Anyway.
So then we move on. Quick aside, because it's in my notes here. Rosa Walsh made her black belt debut against Stephanie Evans, and she gets a nice Kane Basami, that scissor leg takedown entry, but instead of going heel hook, she goes under for the knee bar. A really, really cool finish. She also gets, I think, $1,000 for submission of the night.
Oh yeah, I heard something.
And that was awesome to see. It's cool to see her making her black belt debut, getting her black belt, I think a week or two ago from Fionn Davies, sometime in September. And then we've seen her, on Grapple Fest and a bunch of other UK cards, and even over here in the US. Really cool to see her get a cool sub like that, like a Kane Basami knee bar at your black belt debut.
Yeah.
So shout out to her. That's really cool. I love those highlights. I also love that Polaris pays for, some of the undercard matches when they have great subs like that. So, moving on to the next round of the tournament, we had Fabricio Andre versus Giancarlo. And this is when I thought, okay, well, Fabricio looked great versus Owen, but he's going to run against Giancarlo Bodoni.
Yeah.
Under 88 kilogram champion for ADCC. Your guy is Dork's been at 45 pounds, 66 kilos. Giancarlo is probably going to be too much. And I was wrong.
Yep.
And it was an awesome day to be wrong. This is in my notes. This is one of my contenders for match of the year. I don't know if it's because of the context. Again, it's hard to say things are going to be in contenders for match of the year so close to watching them. Like, it was yesterday for me.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the hell out of this match.
Well, it wasn't yesterday. It was 2 days ago. This is Polaris. Saturday.
It was Saturday.
You watched
all
it
the
Saturday.
days. All the days go together.
All your days are blending.
Yeah, I had to work yesterday, so that's why I did work on a Sunday. So it got confusing. This match was great. It was Fabricio just being hard to deal with. Bodoni looks great here. Bodoni at one point
hard to control, hard to hold down.
Bodoni could not control him for extended periods of time that would score. Bodoni hits a really, really nice transition armbar off of Fabricio's turtle. He tries to turn it into a triangle. I was like, ooh, this is all she wrote. Fabricio's going to get submitted. And then Fabricio goes, not today. Passes the arm, passes out of the triangle, and then immediately is looking to stand up and get out of it. So Bodoni doesn't score that and isn't able to submit him. At one point, I think this is maybe the coolest sequence of this match for me, was Giancarlo is on the ground. He gets up with a single leg on Fabricio. And he sort of is standing up with it, and he's sort of looking for how he wants to take Fabricio down. He's looking to make sure they're established to standing, and then if he takes him down, he'll score. Yeah. Either the sweep or the takedown, depending on how you want to view it, depending on exactly where he is. And then Fabricio goes, you're standing kind of close to me. I have a whizzer here. Yeah. And Fabricio, because he's super flexible and very quick, he reaches down while having one leg up in the single leg, and he cross-side ankle picks Bodoni. Then, I watched it, and I caught it on the third or fourth replay watching this. Fabricio goes from having the overhook whizzer to going and passing his hand over to basically club Bodoni's head in order to take him down and finish this cross-side ankle pick. It's a really nice combination of him both reaching
I see what you say.
and him coming up over.
Yeah, because normally for the ankle pick, if you do an uchi to an ankle pick, you need an underhook for your uchi. Yeah. So that you can kind of chuck the shoulder back as you ankle pick.
You can do it from an overhook too.
You can do it from
I throw it a ton from an overhook.
I do my uchis from underhooks because I'm a weirdo.
Because you're supposed to. Well, you're supposed to do it from an underhook.
I don't know. Everybody I know does them from overhooks.
Everyone else does it as a counter throw. And Fabricio does a lot here, but it was cool to see him instead of going for Uchimata because Bodoni had good control of the leg here. And I don't know if they consider takedown in the. It's ill-advised to do it in the spot with where Bodoni had his leg. It was really cool to see Fabricio take Bodoni down. Bodoni, to his credit, immediately pops up, but then Fabricio has the single leg on Bodoni. Yeah. I was like, that was a role reversal. And then he kicks out Bodoni's leg as he jumps. Very similar to what we saw Henki Julissa hit on Big Dan a couple weeks ago. The same exact takedown on that single leg. They jump, you kick, they fall. Bodoni's able to almost get up. And then they have a bit of a scramble, and then there's no score. Yeah. But it was wild to see basically Fabricio be willing to counter. Not just try to get out of the single leg. Yeah. But be actually looking to counter and score his own points off of this kind of Bodoni taking a little long in the single leg here to set up the single leg he was looking to do. The counter is wild. That's not even. There's still no score at this point. There's still no score in the match between either of these guys.
There was a score, that
was later. The Uchimata, this is a 1-0 match.
Fabricio Andre gets an Uchi from a wizard, but that's later.
Yeah, that was a different time because Bodoni's playing up from the wrestle up again, and they're on their knees, and Fabricio Uchimatas him over.
You would think after seeing him Uchimata people, you wouldn't give him another Uchimata.
I think guys it's part of the way people wrestle up. They wrestle up kind of half to back, and most people don't have the confidence in the Uchimata to be able to throw you there. Yeah. So you can commit your weight kind of their leg because you have to actually do a really legitimate, judo style, really good Uchimata, or else you just get crushed over and you get landed on. True. Most guys, it's not a technique that you see a ton. Yeah. I spent a fucking year doing the Uchimata and No-Gi to have it be serviceable as a tool. So it's really cool to see Fabricio as a smaller guy be throwing it. I'm like, yes, I didn't waste that year of training learning how to do that technique. But he's able to get on top of Bodoni off that wrestle up, Bodoni wrestle ups. Fabricio hits the counter Uchimata and then is able to settle over top of Bodoni's hips because he lands over top of him. Yeah. And Bodoni can't scramble out and make enough space, so he scores the one, and Fabricio Andre beats Giancarlo Bodoni in, I think, what is the biggest upset of the tournament. Yeah. By far. I didn't expect. These guys meet again. I would not expect Fabricio.
I don't know. The finals match might be the biggest upset.
You think
Duarte? No. Okay, my bad. I looked at it wrong. I was like, no. Okay.
You read him in reverse?
I read him in reverse. And then I realized how fucked up I messed up that one.
Next one, we had Kenan Duarte versus Isaac Michel. Duarte pulls and then hits a tilt sweep on Isaac Michel. Again, a really quick score. And then goes front headlock to score on Isaac Michel.
He just holds him down.
Yeah. And this is really like Duarte continuing to pressure and take down Isaac Michel. And it played out kind of similar to the Rao match where he's kind of over top of Michel and like controlling him and not letting him work.
Yeah.
There was a couple passes, and you and I were both kind of curious because Duarte went from being up 1
to up 3
for that initial sequence to being up 3.
I think it was passes.
Yeah,
because he passed his guard a few times. I think.
we couldn't quite tell with where the feet were. Like with 2 or 3-0. Like again, Isaac Michel doesn't score here, but we weren't
Isaac
exactly
Michel
certain.
Does score at the end.
Well, so we have
He
some
does.
notes that he has
so
1.
He does because Isaac Michel gets a single.
You're right.
On him
Yeah.
towards the ends, and kind of grabs his head, and that's I think how it ends is like him getting his head out or something like that.
Because again, Duarte knows he's up points, so
so
tactically you'll take the takedown to put the match in a more conservative position long term. But Duarte takes that on points. We move into after that we have let's talk about that after. Let's move on to the finals, which is Fabricio versus Kahn. This was very funny because Kahn Duarte does the IBJJF make your hand grips and sit, which in Polaris I don't think you have to do.
I don't know about that.
Do you have to make grips?
I don't know. I've been watching too many tournaments over the weekend.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It gets a little blurry, and they all kind of laugh, and then immediately Kahn like sits up into Fabricio and like takes him down.
But he does like the blast double.
Yeah, wrestle up blast double, and it was. I think it looked to me like Fabricio was still kind of laughing that he had made kind of and just sat and wasn't quite ready for Duarte to.
I don't
do
think
what
anybody's
doing.
I don't think. I think Kahn blast doubles anybody from a wrestle up, and you don't know what the fuck is going. Like that's kind of a.
It's a large dude coming.
It's a
through
large dude coming through you.
I just thought it was really interesting that that Kahn, the beginning of every single one of these matches, immediately comes off and scores.
Yeah.
And even in the finals, like it's just such a different, not approach from Kahn, but like Kahn will usually fill you out a little bit and then go. He scores immediately in all these matches.
And then this is also the one where I think Kahn goes for a takedown. Freaking Fabricio Andre tries to Uchimata him.
Fabricio Andre tries to Uchimata,
but he
Kahn like 4 separate times in this tournament.
But he grabs his back at one point and like rolls through, which is sort of why you don't do certain takedowns in no-gi.
Yeah.
If you don't have good grips, because they just take your back. But that happens, which is points, and then there's a crunch sweep. There's a bunch of stuff.
This was a great match again, but I think the best moment of this match was the counter Uchimata from Fabricio, where he's again in the same position, and you see him do the jump for the Uchimata. And the Uchimata, by the way, is that leg kick in the middle, and then you turn them and you throw them over. And you see Fabricio, and I caught it in the slow-mo later. He does the traditional thing you have to do in Uchimata to prevent your back from being taken. He does it with the whizzer.
Yeah.
And then he also reaches across and he grabs Duarte's far hand and arm in order to be able to turn him and actually get him over.
Yeah.
So really neat, like really great display of if you have a really good counter judo game. We've seen it from Owen before. You can leverage that to be successful in no-gi jiu-jitsu. And a lot of times people, and for years it's sort of been a thought that, you really can't, implement no-gi judo, and, it's because you need the grips, you need the grips. Fabricio and Owen, I think, are kind of showing if you have a collection of techniques that you've kind of battle-tested, the Uchimata is one of those things that you can use here. Duarte does get an arm crunch here, takes his back, gets the body triangle, gets the rear naked choke, but that's sort of what we all expected to happen.
Yeah.
What we didn't expect to happen was the smallest guy in your tournament by
20 kilos.
By 10 and 20 kilos to make it all the way to the finals and put up a good match versus Kahn Duarte.
He did.
So
it was a very good match. It was a very impressive match for him. The entire tournament was really impressive for Fabricio.
Yeah.
Really puts his stock prices up.
Dude, I cannot wait. I will never miss another Fabricio Andre match. Like that dude made me, I've been a fan. This whole series was like, I need to be a bigger fan because he's super exciting and he has a great collection of techniques that he can put together, and he's willing to go out to an open weight GP and into the finals.
Yeah.
Like, props for Bruce Andre. It was great. We had a main event match on this, which was 2 MMA fighters, Grundy versus Aljamain Sterling. What's Grundy's first? Mike Grundy.
Mike Grundy. And it was just a lot of wrestling.
It was mostly wrestling. At one point, Sterling gets a head and arm guillotine for a minute or two, minute and a half. And that is the largest sequence of the match. Sterling was kind of pushing the pace, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
And Sterling wins it on decision. We've talked to MMA fighters on like taking grappling super fights before. Sterling's in his prime. He's just like a month out of losing the title to Sean O'Malley. It sometimes can be rough.
You need one gentleman that just is willing to play guard.
Yeah, so we see more mat work. Was a lot of.
You need one that doesn't give a shit and actually do it, or you need a rule set like Combat Worlds where they are going to put one on their butt, on their back.
Yeah, because they tried to put him down.
Yeah, they tried to put him down, but they just
immediately stood up.
You know,
and
like it's hard to force it when neither of them want to.
Yeah,
do
both
that.
of them are looking to wrestle, and that's fine. We just didn't. We saw one sequence of mat work in the entire match, and I would have loved to see. I would have loved to see a little less wrestling and actually, positional work, because it was the one sequence from Sterling that sort of takes the match, and it was great. I would love to see Sterling potentially, go for another title, and face O'Malley again. I really want to see Merab versus O'Malley. To be frank, I think that would be an awesome match. But props to Sterling in the prime of his career, coming out and doing a grappling match. I do love to see the crossover. I just wish that potentially we would have had a guy be willing to play the bottom.
Yeah.
But again, overall great event. I love Polaris. I love what they're doing. I love the talent they're showcasing. I think the GPs that they've been putting on this year, the women's GP, I'm going to stand by, is one of the best GPs we've had, regardless of gender. But again, back-to-back women's GP and this GP are phenomenal. Talking about doing a 170 GP, I want to see it. Polaris is putting together some of the best collections of cards on the sport, and I also love the Fight Pass interface. I think it's great. The commentary was great and knowledgeable and fun, and it was a great way to spend a Saturday afternoon.
We are also not going to miss out on Lovato.
That is not on this card.
That was on the other card?
That was on the next card.
Oh, fuck.
Moving on.
Fuck, man. Sorry.
It's been a big weekend.
It's going to blend. Things are blending. I was like, you better not give Daddy Lovato his.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna skip Lovato. Lovato's in my notes here.
Okay.
So moving on to who's number one, Night of Champions, and it was a Night of Champions. It was a good weekend for champions. We had headlined by Gordon Ryan versus Patrick Gaudio in Gordon Ryan's quest to submit everyone that he hasn't submitted yet but still beat. Let's start with that match and let's move on to Lovato after that.
Oh man.
This match was. We had some questions about how Gordon looked after illness and injury. I unfortunately don't have a lot to say about the match other than Gordon looks phenomenal. Gaudio is world class, and Gordon was able to control him in both the takedowns. He hits a really nice single leg club takedown.
Smack.
Yep, and the way that we've seen him doing it for a little bit, we saw him versus Penna do the same exact thing. He then controls. He does that low passing we were talking about that a lot of people were using this weekend. Yep. He controls. He prevents Gaudio from being able to get the knees up and get to the half guard or get to really anything for a length of time.
Well, he gets the half guard twice.
Sorry, not half guard, but
like he can't really get under. He can't elevate him.
Yeah,
he can't really do.
Can't go to any sweeps from there, and Gordon stays at the range. Gordon in super fights plays a certain kind of way. Like he leans on you. We know he can do it faster. Like we've seen him at ADCC go for fast subs when he has a tournament, when he has matches that he has to get to, and doesn't want to be tired later in the day or later in the weekend. But for super fights, he likes to lean on you. He likes to make you tired. He likes to positionally control, and that's what he does for a little under, I think, a little over 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes.
Something like that. He controls.
The whole match was maybe 20 minutes long.
He eventually passes.
Yep.
He gets towards the back. He does a chair sit to the back. The only technical thing I really want to talk about is the thing that Gordon's talking about now, because he dropped an instructional on us, which is once he goes to chair sit, if he's on Gaudio's back, Gordon takes his leg, he kind of hops it up over the shoulder in a way to control the far side arm.
Yep.
He then hops the leg with a really interesting backhand Kimura grip on the front side arm that he's going for. He then pops the leg over. Gaudio goes to S-grip his hands together so that Gordon doesn't take the armbar that he's looking for. And Gordon shelves his leg over the arm. He then pummels the other leg over top of it, and he puts his calf and like the back of his shin on the top of Gaudio's knuckles. My wife actually picked this up. She goes, look where his leg is. I was like, oh, look at that. That's really neat.
Yeah, because I thought he was going to Barato Plata him for a second. And I was like, ooh,
because it looks really similar, but he didn't bring it up like he was going for the arm crunch. He put it right above the knuckles on the hand, because with the S grip, you saw Gordon push his leg down and like strip the hand grip away. And then he takes the armbar and finishes the armbar. He then opens a little pirate case, pulls out whiskey, and drops an arm and drops a
He had some weird ass doll in there too.
Yeah, I didn't understand. He had Kendall Rusing read the paper.
Maybe it was like a Halloween thing.
It was all theatrics, and like credit to him. I appreciate that he like went for the sub and didn't look for. He looked for an armbar and didn't look for like a smother or look for something that was higher percentage that he could drop an instructional on. I thought the pummeling over for the hand grip was really interesting, the way that he broke that grip and the way that he was able to control Gaudio in that position to make that transition. Again, he made Gaudio tired, he leaned on him, he waited on him, and then he was able to take that at the speed he wanted. I am impressed sort of at the glacial pace that Gordon is willing and able to control people. And that is in no way a negative.
Yeah.
It is extremely impressive to be able to control a world-class guy like Patrick Gaudio like this at this pace. Like, Gordon brings you into the first gear and just rides in that gear. And no matter what you want to do to exploit out of the match or get away or sweep or make offense happen, he just is able to slow you down consistently. And it's tactically, we know why he's doing it. For him to technically consistently be able to do this, I think is really impressive. It may not be like the most interesting to watch and kind of analyze, but I think from a technique perspective, it's really impressive. Like, he can do this to guys on the world level like Patrick Gaudio. Look at their match 4 years ago. Like, Josh and I, when we previewed this matchup, talked about like it holds no relevance. The match isn't going to look the same, and it didn't at all. Like, this was an entirely different guy in Gordon Ryan in this match, and I think that's kind of going to be the flavor in all the rematches we see from him. Gordon's kind of on a mission now to go back and submit everyone that he has beaten but hasn't subbed.
While looking like Santa Claus.
Definitely. That is interesting color for the beard.
That's an interesting look right there.
It is. He's going against Hulk now, which is a match I'm excited for.
Yeah,
I love Hulk. I unfortunately don't know how much different it will be. I think Hulk is a little more explosive, a little quicker than Gaudio.
Yeah. Hulk is strong too.
Like, I think he's a little smaller than Gaudio though, because he's fighting 170 now in PFL.
I think he's.
And that's my concern is that. But again, Gordon hasn't been able to submit Hulk.
But I'm sure Hulk can take all the special vitamins.
Yeah, and get jacked, like ADCC jacked.
Super jacked.
I'd love to see it. But I'm excited for that matchup. It'll be cool to go back and rewatch their previous match. I don't really have much more to say. It's really impressive. He controls him, and that's the match. Go back and watch the armbar, the hand strip with a leg.
Yeah.
And the way that Gordon is able to control Gaudio's like head and shoulders.
I'm pretty sure
when
that's
he sits.
If you go the Who's no, or you go to not the Who's number one page because they don't have an Instagram, but Flow's Instagram, they have it.
Yeah. It's neat. It's really, really great technique. Again, the pacing that he is able to do that for me is really impressive because like you're forcing a guy to fight you at that pace, and it must be just astonishingly exhausting to do that. And that's why, again, he can take the arm bars like that or whatever sub he kind of is looking to take. Oh yeah, he wrote it down. He knew he was doing an arm bar. We're not even mentioning that anymore.
So I think that kind of goes back in the day when DDS used to compete. John would give them a submission that they had to hit for the tournament.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they have the ability to do this, is because John has made them do this for like 10 years by now.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing that Gordon and Gary, he used to make Gordon and Gary go and
I know.
Like, hey, you're going to hit
There was
this
a girl
sub.
that would go into the tournaments. She was Eastern European. That's all I remember.
Okay.
I don't remember her name, but she was part of DDS, and she would always be like either in my division or the division above mine. And I've heard conversations where they were discussing like what they were supposed to hit for, a tournament. So yeah,
it's a neat thing. Again, we didn't even mention that as a feature. Like Gordon knew he was going to hit an armbar and drop an instructional on it. I do not know.
If not, he would probably start getting pissy like he did the one time that he didn't get whatever.
Versus Pedro, yeah. Because Pedro was like, put his arms on me.
Yeah.
He gave him credit too. He goes, he knew what I wanted. He wasn't going to let me get it. So I had to bring a chug because he won this one.
Yeah.
Again, I want to see him against Hulk. And then I would love to see Gordon against Kahn again. I think Kainen's the one I want to see now.
I want Gordon. Or I want...
Nicky Rod?
No, I want Micah Galval in 10 years with all the drugs.
Yeah.
Versus him.
I'll watch that.
Maybe not 10 years, maybe 5 years.
Let's talk about that tournament.
We need a couple years so we can get some good drugs in him.
And then get huge and then fight Gordon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about the next match and let's move on to the tournament here. We had Rafael Lovato Jr. taking on Ricardo Evangelista. Evangelista, I think, filled in late.
Yeah, he filled in late for Pedro Marino.
Yeah. And then Pedro was there. Lovato wins this. Yeah. Lovato, you break it down because I'm a huge Lovato fan, but I think you're even a bigger Lovato fan than I am.
I love some Lovato. He does what Lovato does. I can't really even explain it. He just kind of like passes, and he passes in a way that you're like
very great technical analysis. He just kind of passes.
But I mean, he does very basic. Like nothing is complicated.
Mm-mm.
It's all some basic, not trying to be.
No, not bad. It's not bad. Basic.
It's not bad. Basic.
Yeah, basic's
it's
not
like
bad.
He does a very like basic like pass, and I forget which pass he does because I didn't write that down. But then he goes from like a head and arm, and then he goes to the back, and then he like wiggles his legs up and gets a triangle.
He just switches. He goes back. I'm gonna go for the armbar. Going for the triangle actually.
Yeah.
And then he just it's super fluid.
Yeah.
It's not at pace. He just sort of...
No, but it was weird is like there was a little warm-up period where I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen because they're both kind of playing with each other. But they were both kind of moving slow. And then all of a sudden you just saw Lovato like, okay, this is over. Let me take care of it.
Yeah, you saw him kind of ramp up like he used to and decide like, I'm gonna turn this into the next gear. And then he kind of got his feet under him almost.
Yeah.
Which I think... Lovato's a historic, really, really good competitor. He probably doesn't need time to get his feet under him, like I said.
No, but he did seem like it took him a minute to, like, figure out. And I don't know if that was him trying to figure out, like, what exactly is Evangelista going to do? Or, I don't know. But he does what Lovato does, which is simple jiu-jitsu, but he controls you. I
love that they're giving him the Pedro Marino match, though, because that's the match he talked about versus...
Yeah, he said he's not getting any younger. He needs Pedro.
What was the match he had? Who he beat last time?
He beat somebody that he wasn't supposed to beat.
Forgetting who it was.
And I'm like, shit. Let me look.
Regardless, so Lovato in the last time he was on Who's Number One was like... Basically, he gave the speech about why he's not retiring. He's like, look, I'm still in the room with Hugo and like all these other guys in our camp. I'm putting in the same work I was putting in. Like, yeah, I'm out of adult competition, but I'm not going to stop competing because I am here putting the same work I was doing.
It was some amazing match because I remember it was the middle of the night when this match happened, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, like, and I was like, I'm going to wake up the entire household now because I am so happy that he just won. And it was somebody that he wasn't supposed to win against.
So then he called that. So Isaac Michel basically was the one that were kind of lining up for the next title shot versus Pedro Marino because he had called him out earlier in the night. And Lovato went, look, Isaac's still young. Pedro's the champion at the weight class at 205. I want to face Pedro because I'm not getting any younger and I earned it. Like, I want to go do it. Give me that matchup. And then Isaac, he can face me. He can face Pedro.
Elder Cruz.
Yeah, he beat Elder Cruz.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And
that was the one I was like in my house, like screaming.
So I love
because it was awesome.
that he takes this match. They're going to give him the Pedro match because I'm like, look, man, if Lovato wants that match, he's earned it.
He's also isn't Sanji part of this organization or something?
Yeah, he's his coach.
Well, no, Sanji was handing out the belts when people were
Oh yeah, Sanji does commentary and does the belts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, he kind of has an in.
Hey man, give him an in. Give Lovato. If any guy you're going to give an in, give it to Lovato. I can't wait to see him versus Pedro. I think that's a very hard match for Lovato, but dude earned it, and I love to see Lovato. So, how do you want to break this down? We have a 145-pound tournament. we have 2 women's title fights, and we have a 170-pound tournament. We're getting a little long already, but it's worth it for the evening.
Where are there 2 women's matches?
So we had Elizabeth Clay versus versus Brianna St. Marie, and we had Rafaela Guedes versus Nathiela de Jesus.
Let's just start at let's start the smaller one, 45, right?
The women's 45 match?
No, men's 45.
Oh, men's 45
bracket.
So first match of this bracket, we had Keith Krikorian.
Just keep it short. Keep it short, man.
I'm not. I'm Zach. I'm not good at it. Keith Krikorian versus Diogo Reis. Keith, this is I say it frequently. See Keith. This is I think some of the best we have ever seen Keith look, and Diogo was still able to take this match.
He was still better.
Like man, it is. I am just astonished at how good Diogo Reis is.
I think we can just do the entire bracket all at one time and just say that Diogo's pace was extremely higher than anybody else.
Yeah.
His counters, his jiu-jitsu was of a higher level than everyone else.
For instance, there's a counter he hits on Keith. Keith goes early in the match, so they're still fresh for a lat drop. And they're going back, and he goes to lat drop, which is basically overhooks or from hands, and you drop back and you throw them over you. And Diego sees what's happening and intercepts it and then almost lands in mount on Krikorian. It just like things like that where most other people are going to be able to, at best, with the way Krikorian's throwing this, get out of it and pull back and like not get thrown or like get thrown to the side, not be taken over. Diogo intercepts this and almost takes him out. Like that is not a thing that we see people be able to do versus guys at the level of Krikorian. Like it's not, there are very few guys that can do that. He blast doubles Keith like a couple of times. He gets him down. He can out wrestle him. We know Keith is a good wrestler. We've seen him in these tournaments over all the years, like out wrestle people, and that's a thing that he leans into as a previously being a wrestler. Diogo out wrestles him. He hits him with like blast doubles. He pulls a triangle, kind of reminiscent of what we see Michael Galvao hit later.
Wrap it up. We have more matches to go. Wrap it up. He out wrestles him.
He out wrestles him.
That's what we take.
He takes the tournament. He's very good.
No, that's what we take from that match. Then he goes and out wrestles Souza.
Yeah, he out wrestles.
And he wins.
Yeah,
that is the entire tournament right there.
Yeah, basically, I mean, he wins Souza on out wrestling and control. Yeah, like he controls Gabriel Souza, and Souza has good offense, but especially Sousa's late in the match.
I feel like Souza's also one of those people that sometimes he wins by just being more tenacious than the other person.
Yes.
Because I've watched a lot of wins where he's not winning. Then all of a sudden, at the end, he just freaking turns on the second gear and wins. And
go back and look
Diogo
at his...
just never has that point where he slows down. He just stays at 1 million miles per hour. So even if he does have the ability to turn that gear, it's like it doesn't matter because he's already been at that gear.
Right. Yeah, we see this. I think we're seeing this more and more is guys that can keep a pace in no-gi can win because when your opponent is unable to keep the pace, they still have that technique on top of that pace. Their technique is not informed by they're not throwing pace at you because they don't have technique. They're throwing pace as another tool that you then have to deal with in combination with their technique, and those two things just overwhelm people. Like Baby Shark and Gabriel Souza was close, but especially late in the match, Baby Shark really started to take it away from Souza. There was good tells back and forth, but he takes a really clean match there. We also had this in this bracket, so Baby Shark takes the whole bracket, is now the 145-pound champion. We also had Ash Williams versus Gabriel Souza in the first round of that bracket that let Gabriel move on. Gabriel hits a really neat knee bar off the saddle. He inverts under it, and then he hips out of the way. The camera angle was great for it. We mentioned on the pre-show that Ash had both feet wrapped up. Yeah. He just did European trials, 2 weeks ago? Yeah. Or something like that.
2 weeks ago.
And did not compete for third in that. We weren't quite exactly certain why. His feet were okay. He had a great match with Owen Jones that you should go back and watch, the one who actually did win the 66-kilogram trials division. But Gabriel Souza was able to submit Ash Williams.
And then we have the 170-pound bracket.
Yeah.
The 170-pound bracket is a weird one.
Yeah, okay.
It gets weird.
So
not weird, it's just, it's not exactly what we wanted and more.
So, first round of the match, we had J-Rod versus Mika Galvao. There's an injury in the bracket. We'll get to the injury, which is why the matches are all good.
We don't have to go through this match completely. We can go very easily at that. Mika Galvao out-wrestled J-Rod.
Yeah.
Like that, basically.
And there's like two.
There's some really good sequences. There's some really good, like, J-Rod's armbar defense is on point. We have some
armbar defense is wild.
We have some crazy armbar defense.
Remember what you saw in Quintet?
Yeah.
When he got a Jed Hughes armbar? Yeah, it was that again. Except Mika Galvao is one of like top 5 in the world, and J-Rod was able to do it still. This one, I think we had a better camera angle for this one because you could see exactly how J-Rod is getting out of it. He's preempting the spin down for the arm to basically straighten his arm out, and he's getting his arm to the side. You also mentioned that he rolls the other way to get out of this. Most people hitchhike one way. J-Rod doesn't hitchhike. He rolls. He does like a reverse bridge out of it.
It's probably more wrestling kind of thing to do.
Like a tabletop almost.
Like a wrestling movement rather than, because like most of us don't have the flexibility to go that direction.
No, he's like spinning his hips underneath him and through. And then what's impressive to me is he does it 3 times in a row. And every time he does it, and there's 2 times, where the last time he does it, the arm is kind of straight, but he's pulling it out enough.
An easy way to explain it is when your arm is in an arm bar, if you can make your body parallel with the other person, your arm is not in trouble because both your bodies are parallel. But you normally do that belly to belly. Somehow, J-Rod finds a way to do it back to back.
Yeah.
And that's the weird one because your shoulder is in a really precarious position in that point.
You ever see Vinny Magalhaes versus Fabricio Verdum in ADCC? It's that armbar defense.
Yeah.
Except J-Rod has a little more dynamism than Vinny Magalhaes. Vinny Magalhaes is really leveraging like the shoulder flexibility. J-Rod is doing that while also doing a flip 3 times.
Yeah.
It's wild. He's got very, very good defense. He also gets out of a locked in head and arm that he keeps giving the thumbs up on. Like, he's in a head and arm. Mika Galvao is in mount, trying to finish him. He keeps giving the thumbs up. And then the minute Mika Galvao, after, like, what, a minute or 2, goes to adjust it, J-Rod does a little bump and bridge and gets his arm free and gets out of the position. There's also a fucking suplex that Mika Galvao hits when J-Rod is coming in on him. He suplexes him over. Like, Mika Galvao kept a pace here. And J-Rod looked good and got out of some good stuff, but Mika Galvao looked untouchable in this match.
Yep. And then we go into Tackett and Barch.
Yeah, Andrew Tackett versus PJ Barch. This was another match of
I actually sent the group a text message when this happened.
Mm-hmm. And I said, don't spoil it.
Yeah.
Because I think I was like a little bit behind.
No, it was F them kids.
Oh, yeah.
It was the F them kids comment because all these like young ass kids, man, it's the pacing they can keep.
No country for old men. I think Mika Galvao is 19 or 20. Andrew Tackett is 20.
Yeah.
Barch is 33, and J-Rod is 21 or 20.
Yeah, he's young.
Something like that. Andrew Tackett keeps a pace this entire match for 15 minutes.
And Barch just can't keep up.
It was unreal. And you see Barch towards the last like 3 or 5 minutes of the match. There's a couple times where they reset, and you see Barch like look around like, bro. He literally, you see him 2 points, the camera cuts to his face, and he's like wide-eyed. He's like, what pace is this guy keeping?
I think the one time it's because he throws him into the table.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think
about.
The one comment,
he's a little annoyed.
The one is like, you fucking just threw me into a goddamn table. Like that's the look.
Yeah, he looks annoyed, but
he's a little annoyed.
It's at 3 minutes mark. There's a thing where he looks up, and you can, at least I may have the positions wrong in my head, but he looks like you can see him come back to the center mat. He has his hands on his knees, and he's like, he is ready. He's in it. Like PJ Barch is not a guy to be put off by a hard match.
He always kind of looks tired. Like he's not like as bad as Leandro Lowe tired.
Yeah,
but he still always has the I'm tired look.
He has a look, but it usually doesn't at all affect his pace.
Yeah.
In this match, you could see Tackett. Tackett was pushing the same pace at minute 5 that he was pushing at minute 13, and you could see he was able to slow Barch down in that Tackett was able to get deeper into the wrestling because he was out wrestling Barch, which is astonishing. Like very few people. PJ Barch out wrestled JT Torres at ADCC. the two-time champion,
Yeah,
to
but
have
that was after he was worked down by Kenta.
Yeah, and after he dealt with Kenta
Yeah.
Iwamoto in the first round, but to have Andrew Tackett come in fresh versus fresh Barch, and in the beginning take Barch down 2 different times.
Yep.
This was, you brought it up when we were talking about this in the pre-show. Every time Tackett or Barch would have a sequence, there would be a counter, and then eventually it would be Barch trying to do something and Tackett being able to counter, and then being able to counter again and force either a scramble or force his own positions and just be able to keep fighting longer in the scramble. And that was sort of the narrative of the match. And it was, I'm a big PJ, you're a huge PJ Barch fan.
Yeah.
It is not a way that we've ever
Barch
seen
Panther.
pace implemented on Barch. Like I don't recall a match
No.
I've ever
Not
seen
even
from
Cody
PJ
Steele,
Barch.
and the two of them
No.
beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
At trials.
And Cody Steele's another guy that will break you with pace, again, from that Brazilian Fight Factory camp, but I have never seen somebody be able to keep a pace like that on Barch that Andrew Tackett was able to keep. It was it was the most impressive performance I've ever seen from Tackett.
And then we can move on to the next match.
So Tackett takes it on decision, and then we go into the finals, which should have been Andrew Tackett and Mickey Galvao, but Andrew Tackett hurt his back.
Yeah.
And so we got PJ Barch, who,
which I've heard before, he's had back problems.
Yeah, and he mentioned in kind of a longer post that he's had back problems, which again, I love seeing PJ Barch.
Only because his strength trainer I follow for the fact that my back kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And so
his strength trainer is good.
He's a good strength trainer.
He was, if you want to hear more about him, he's on the Simple Man podcast. He's been on that podcast, and he talks about Cody Steele's training, Tackett Brothers training, the back issues that Andrew's had. And that was, a year ago he's on that podcast?
I think so. I don't know.
Something like that. He talks about the issues that he's had and how they rehabbed his back.
Yeah.
So it's been an issue, but Tackett beats Barch impressively, but is injured and can't continue. So Barch, you can't have J-Rod come out because J-Rod's already gotten beaten by Micah. So you got to bring Barch out. And Barch, to his credit, man, stepped up. Because Barch could easily gone, no, I got pulled out. I don't have to do it. No one has to do it. Barch doesn't have to do it.
Yeah.
But to save the show, he does it. He comes out. And so, huge credit to Barch to be willing to step back up and take on Mickey Galvao after that match he had with Tackett.
Who knows how much time they gave him either. I don't know if they told him or not. It could have been he was in a corner chilling, and they were like, "Hey, you got to go against Mike Galvao."
Hey, Tackett, or do you want to go? We want to, and Barch is not a guy that's going to say no, because he's on that world level, he's in those stages.
But then, unfortunately, it goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, they start. There's an immediate takedown sequence that ends up with Barch and
I think it's an Uchi, and I think it's how you defend an Uchi, which is you face plant. Both of you go face first, both of you at the same time, because it's how you defend the Uchi.
The Uchimata.
And he just takes a header into the concrete.
And then, not the concrete, into Micah's head. He hit the
they do. They had...
Because
that was...
commentary...
And then they re-show it, and you see them,
because the first angle you saw, you couldn't see... You saw Barch get up, and then immediately kind of like stanky leg. Ooh, that was weird. What happened? And Barch's like, give me a second. He's like, I went out. And then they're like, what? And then they kind of give him a second, and they show the replay, and from the other angle, you can see that he just smashes his face into Micah's head, and it's like, oh, he got flash KO'd there, but he's a gangster, and he's willing to stay in it.
Look at his facial expression. He's not.
Oh, he's not with it. You can tell that he's
and
not
then
having
Micah's
a good time.
like, fuck you, I'm going to flying armbar you now, because you're not paying attention.
Yeah, because she just got flash KO'd, and now Micah goes, cool, I'm going to pounce on this.
Yeah.
From the underhook, Mickey Galvao jumps under, does the armbar, flying armbar that you break your neck on.
Yeah.
Does it the same way, but lands it, and armbars PJ Barch. Really unfortunate kind of, a phenomenal ending. Really unfortunate circumstance for Barch.
Yeah.
It sucks because Barch was willing to step up in that after having that really tough match with Andrew Tackett.
Yeah.
By the way, he didn't look bad in that match.
No.
I'm not sure if I made that clear.
He doesn't look bad at all.
I was more so highlighting how good Andrew Tackett looked versus PJ Barch looking good
Barch
too.
has been looking extremely good through through the last couple matches he's had.
I think this is the best we have seen Barch look.
He really hasn't had anybody do this to him
ever
recently.
Ever. I don't think.
Ever.
I think I can look back to Purple Belt matches and maybe then.
Yeah.
But it's been 7 years or more, or 8 years since the last time he's had a match like that. So it sucks. The circumstances suck. But Micah Galvao is the champion, deservedly so. Looked phenomenal in both his matches. It just is an unfortunate kind of circumstances for the matchup. I hope Barch is healthy. I would love to see him at trials. I hope that he's not injured here because that would suck. I love watching him compete.
Yep.
So it is what it is. But Michael Gaudio takes that. He's now the champion for 170. Who's number one? Moving on to the women, we have Elizabeth Clay taking on Brianna Stay Marie. Elizabeth Clay, I would mention this earlier. I think off the air, has a really similar game to Oliver Taza.
Yeah.
Where she will play into the legs, and she will force you to defend the legs. And when you defend the legs, she's not gonna get like set in stone that's all she's going for.
Nah, she does.
A little bit sometimes.
She does.
But she's turned it into eventually you're going to make a mistake or eventually you're going to have to give her something because she's so flexible she can get you in.
She's not like one of those people that go legs, head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think if she did that, she might actually open people up because if they think she might be going... I mean, she doesn't... It's not like she does a bad... Yeah, she doesn't need to, but she definitely, plays kind of the same game for this entire match.
And then Brianna gets on back for a little bit, and then eventually Clay gets out, and then
but you can't really get her back.
No.
Like
Clay is astonishingly hard to get her back.
Yeah, she gets and I was trying to figure it out because I'm like it's like she somehow, and I'm assuming she pulls her arms inside of her legs, but then there's no space. Like I was trying to figure out where would you put your foot? I don't know. I couldn't figure that out.
It's really interesting. Clay puts up a lot of offense in the early match. She defends the back from Brianna, and then it is 8+ minutes of her heavy pressure after a sweep on top with head and arm pressure, looking for an overhook wrap on the head, guillotine arm combination, and passing.
Yep.
And just imposing. So from the earlier sections of the match where she was going for the legs until the defense and then the sweep up from the bottom, St. Marie had one really good collection of time there when she was passing, when she was trying to overhook the head and go for almost a head and arm kind of pass style choke. But after that, it was Elizabeth Clay. I mentioned it.
Like a mounted guillotine when I think about it. Didn't she end in a mounted guillotine? Wasn't she trying to guillotine her?
She was kind of trying to guillotine her, overhead, over wrap, pass for guillotine.
Okay, so then I'm completely wrong because I just said she only plays to the legs and doesn't go to the head.
Yeah,
she totally did.
I was gonna let you walk it back here as we got there.
Yeah, well, okay.
It's been a lot of matches
I am wrong
this weekend.
again. I am wrong for the 15th time today.
It happens. Clay has now beaten in the last 18 months or something like that. Fionn Davies. ADCC champion at under 60 at the old weight classes. Brianna St. Marie, who she had a loss to at purple belt, and that was years ago. And even she mentioned in the post-fight interview, it doesn't matter. That was super long ago. No one cares. Yeah. They're who won that match is a purple belt match, and I think it's very reasonable. No one cares. Brianna St. Marie, who is now the silver medalist, she's beaten Amy Campo, who is the gold medalist at plus 60.
She's beat everyone.
The only one she hasn't beaten is Rafaela Guedes.
Who was the other super fight?
And that's who I want to see her face now. We can go into that
match now.
So, moving into Rafaela Guedes versus Natalia De Jesus. This was...
We haven't seen Natalia since she took out Gabby Garcia.
No, we have.
We have.
I'm not sure if we've seen her in No-Gi.
Okay.
But we have seen her.
Oh, yeah, we have seen her in Gi.
Yes,
okay.
we've seen her in Gi.
Got it.
Gi and No-Gi, she's going to play lasso guard.
Yeah.
We watched this match again before the show, and we were going, how does she do that?
Yeah, because I try to play lasso, but I have short little legs, and I then have to defend my legs constantly because idiots try to sit back with my legs all the time. She has long shins, I think.
I think also what she's doing is she's playing the lasso, the feet up guard.
Yeah.
And then as you go to grab her feet, she's pummeling and she's hand controlling you.
Yeah.
And then so she's forcing you to you can't sit in super close and pass with her.
You have to pull the ludicrous.
Yeah, you have to be over top of her, leaned over.
It's a ludicrous song, right?
Yes.
Okay. I thought so.
You have to be in that position if you want to pass the guard. And because she's controlling the hands so well, she forces you into this game in Gi and in No-Gi. And she's able to sweep off of it. Yeah. She's able to get to Getty's back almost. She's able to get to the front headlock 2 different times and just impose and play here and can keep Getty's on the defensive.
And Getty's just takes her knee and freaking tries to knee cut right through.
And can't.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was just impressed with just how tactically Dante was able to do this. And the fact that I can't think of another no-gi lasso player in the world except for her.
Marigali.
Different though.
Yeah, but that's a different because he does
kinda,
it and then stomps down to.
Yeah, he does it different. Like Dante does it like she's in the gi still.
Well, she does it. She does it like a spider lasso.
Yes.
You know who else does that? She does master divisions now. MMA fighter, Nicolini.
Michelle Nicolini.
Yeah, but she does lasso. Mm-hmm. Shin or lasso spider or something like that. Yep. She does,
But again, she's one of the best in the world at that since ever. And Dante takes it. She beats Rafaela Geddes. Again, I thought Geddes was going to take this. We haven't seen a lot from Geddes. Wasn't really sure how she was coming in, but Jesus looks amazing in this match. I think takes it pretty clearly.
Yeah.
And now that she's the champion for the heavyweights for the women, so I want to see Geddes take on Clay now if she can make 45. I don't think Geddes can make 45.
I don't think she can make 45.
But
no way.
That's not the matchup I want to see. I don't know how they make that matchup happen 65. With Clay being the champion. But Elizabeth Clay at one point this year has beaten
no way she's making 45.
All the other champions. That's a matchup I want to see. So that does it for this week. We have trials next week.
No, we don't.
Sorry, we have preview for trials.
Yeah. I was about to say there's
Well,
I'm not that ready yet.
I am doing some media trials. I got the approval from ADCC. They were kind enough to grant me credentials for media.
I'll be running around like an idiot, following people around, trying to make sure my people are where they're supposed to be.
I will be just doing media stuff. If there is someone that you think we should look at, we should follow, we should interview at trials, please let me know. The list is massive for trials. I have a bunch of folks that I would love to do interviews with, but if there's somebody that you think that we should take a look at, again, trials is a phenomenal opportunity. With the media coverage, I want to try to tell as many stories as possible at trials.
Or come find one of us.
Yeah, if you see us at trials, come say hello. I'll have the Grappling Rewind shirts there. I will bring some.
I'm a small ginger.
Yeah.
Just every small ginger you come across, just be like, "Hey, are you Miranda?" And at one point, you'll find me.
I may bring the Grappling Rewind shirts if you want to buy one. I have some extras. So if you want a shirt and you're at trials, let me know. I'll bring you a shirt. I forgot how much they are, but I will figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
And but we're at trials. I'm super happy to be able to do the interviews there. I love getting the opportunity to interview the athletes and talk about them and talk to them about their game plan, about their preparation, about going into the trials and into these regions.
You should exchange it for food.
I am all set. So it'll be fun. Looking forward to that.
I will give you a shirt for food.
I'm good on food.
Okay, I'm not. You can always feed me. I'll be fine. Anyway.
So I got nothing else. You got anything else on?
I don't think so.
All right. So as always in the show, I'm your host, Maine. It's my co-host,
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Rewind to the mat. What it is, stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.